Hello and welcome to How to Citizens Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. We have come a long way, but still there is a long way to go after this also.
Yeah, it was Women's Day yesterday.
I was almost going to congratulate you because you said it, but no. Congratulations to all the women.
Congratulations to the world for Women's Day.
Absolutely.
And today's chapter is actually very poignant, I would say. It's called Women Change the World. And our guest today is a former journalist, as she told me to mention. She's a former journalist, not a current journalist. Mahrukh Inayet.
Thank you. I don't think I do anything journalistic currently.
Yeah. Why though?
I thought I should take a back seat. Kafi ho gaya.
She wanted to take a break from changing the world. It's tough. It's hard work.
I was just trying to report on the world. वो भी नहीं करने
दिया. Oh, but before we begin, Mahrukh, can you show your notes, please? Beautifully written notes. Look, this is
the most... good handwriting though, huh?
It's very good.
Yeah.
Wow.
For all future guests, look at this, the dedication.
Truly.
And
Truly.
And now show your chapter.
It's clean. See, the thing is, I don't want to hamper the original text. I think this text is sacrosanct. I wouldn't mess with it. But I'm a man. I don't change the world. I just live in the world. Let women change.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
And on my part, I have drawn pictures.
Okay.
So, I mean, stick figures, but still, I mean, they told me to draw pictures.
You see how primitive men are? Either they don't do anything or pictures. Words is too much. We can't do words.
I want to see those.
Yeah, I will show. This is
No
suspense.
spoilers.
This is great content, Shreyas. Please, let's wait for it. But yeah, Mahrukh, thank you so much for doing this.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so we are here doing chapter 5 now.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a string of guests before this who did like a bunch of chapters. Before this, we had Richa Chadda.
Nice.
Talking about growing up as boys and girls. So this is like part 2 of that chapter.
Okay.
And we are going to do that with you now. So, first, let's talk about your school life though. What were your first impressions when you read this chapter?
Okay, it was very different from anything I read in school. I thought it was a few notches up, to be honest. Because I studied in Srinagar, right? And we had JK board.
Oh.
So it was a mix. So I'm actually confused because till class 10th, we were told this is the JK board. And then 11th and 12th, the level of what we were studying in school or that was junior college just went down. Like exponentially, right? Then we were told that was part NCERT and part JK board. But because it was quite a few notches up, right? But I thought the language and the basic understanding of issues was quite elevated compared to what I was studying in class 7.
Yeah.
And also class 7 was a very interesting time for me. This is when trouble started in Kashmir, right?
What was this year?
This, I'm quite old, so you calculate this was the 1990, 91.
Yeah.
Right, so that's when 1990 actually January is when trouble started and things imploded, and the whole year we didn't have a single class. So we were actually mass promoted to class 8. So I really don't know what my 7th class book looked like.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That's the best 7th standard story we have. I mean, in a way, the worst also.
I know.
Not the best.
Oh, we were thrilled.
Yeah.
But just that we couldn't go out anywhere, right?
Yeah.
By around, say, 3 in the afternoon, you
There
would
was
have curfew,
all
right?
the time, yeah.
So you're stuck inside. Phones didn't work. You didn't have any cable. Cable to tha hi nahi. No... Pretty much nothing to do, and every night there'd be like some cross-firing that you would hear, and then your parents would get very worried and perturbed. So it was quite unnatural.
Yeah.
A decade before you, Omar Abdullah was in 7th class, who we did the first chapter with.
Right.
And his experience was so different. So in a decade, so many things have changed in Kashmir.
Yes.
Like
he was part of that golden age of Kashmir, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody was having too much fun.
I mean, now the other people are having fun, not the Kashmiris. At the cost of Kashmiris, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But I just find it hilarious that even to school kids, they were still lying on that level also. Like what board you are reading. Like the mainlanders never stop lying to Kashmiris, no matter what. It's always lie after lie.
I don't think it was a designed lie. There were just a bunch of teachers who didn't know any better.
Yeah. But that's what I was going to ask was, so your teachers did teach you about civics? I mean, something you must remember.
Yes, of
whatever.
course. Yeah.
Did it happen that in the class they would do like exercises where you are actually applying civics to real life?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all. It was just learning by rote, and I think by and large, because the trouble started, I mean, before class 7, I really don't have a sense of what civics they were teaching us in class. It was really basic. This is the parliament and 2 houses and so on. Even more basic than that.
Right.
I don't think we ever really developed an evolved way of thinking. And there were never any classes, exercises like the kinds in this chapter where you actually kind of seed a thought, right? That, there's a difference in how I think, or there's a difference in how I perceive. I don't think those markers really happen at all.
This is it. So a 7th grader actually DM'd me on Instagram after watching this. So we started releasing this series, and she DM'd me. And she saw the Omar Abdullah episode, and there I was asking this genuinely to them, do the teachers actually encourage you to think about these things? So she said that her teacher is actually a very good person, and she, basically does these exercises once in a while, not regularly, but she actually tries to do it. The problem is the kids are not interested. So that's her complaint. No, the way. So her thing was that when I saw your episode and we saw the chapter and you discussed it, it gave me such a different perspective than what I got in class. Because again, even if you're doing these exercises, she's not really talking about the actual things happening there.
Yeah.
Like, there was this one line which we were reading with Omar, right, where he said everyone has a right to vote. It was a chapter on equality. And he's like, I want my vote. I don't have a vote. I don't have a government right now. What are you talking about? So the question was, are kids being taught that in class? And he said, probably not. And this kid agrees.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it goes both ways, right? Sometimes the kids are just not interested, but I think somewhere the responsibility lies with the teacher, not necessarily the child. I don't think a child in class 7 or 8 really knows, this is where my thought process is going to change.
Correct.
And somehow I think a little bit more effort needs to be put in by the teacher. So this crazy time from class 6 or 7 to say about 12th in Kashmir, where we literally had no teachers, right? Because most of our teachers were actually army officers' wives who were stationed in Kashmir, right? They were the best ones because they had the command over the language. Kashmiri teachers, by and large, I mean, with due respect to them, weren't really, very proficient in the language. And suddenly, overnight, all these families left because Kashmir was boiling over. And that's when we suddenly got this new crop of teachers who couldn't communicate, who couldn't teach. And obviously, I didn't really learn any lessons. I was just mugging up and learning by rote and trying to. And for the longest time, we didn't even have exams. So it was just a very unreal situation.
Yeah. So when you said the families left, it was because of the exodus that happened?
No, it was because the situation was so bad that army officers were told that your family should go back.
Okay, the family should go back.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that's why the transition sort of happened. So did you like your teachers?
I liked some of them. I can't say I liked all of them. I guess I liked the ones who really made an effort and who kind of... See, the problem is if you're just going to read the chapter, then why are you even going to school? Somebody has to actually make the chapter interesting, and give you something more in terms of perspective. I studied in the US. I actually did my master's in the US, and there was this one class that I was taking in communication law, right? So you enter and the guy has the map of the world, right? And he's turned it upside down. So there's this one cocky guy in the class who said, but professor, why is the map upside down, right? So he said, that's how you're used to looking at it. That's why you think it's upside down, right? Like things like that, where you suddenly kind of turn things on their head.
Yeah.
I don't think happened. I think the first time it happened was in college for me, and especially this one professor of mine who I want to name because she was so fantastic, Reena Kashyap, who taught me political science. She actually kind of made it relevant to my contemporary self, right? Why is this important to you? Why are you reading this? And how does it change your life? Now, college is a really late age to kind of start thinking differently. I think it needs to happen much earlier.
That's what I was thinking. So, I often wonder, like now that we are doing this season, even the first season when we were doing this, what is maybe the correct age to actually expose kids to the realities around them? Like, for example, as Omar said, I don't have a right to vote. So can a teacher actually tell kids ki isme likha hai, but actually you don't? I mean, like we don't, I don't, nobody here does.
Yeah.
So like, this is wrong. But it can be traumatic because there is this chapter which we were reading about Dalit rights,
Right.
Even the equality episode,
yeah.
right? Wahan pe there is this very brutal example of this person, this famous writer who basically was made to sweep the floor in the school and all the things. Is a teacher actually going there and telling kids ki, this has not stopped yet. It's still happening. Read the newspaper, you will see like people being attacked for drinking from a well or whatever. Is there an age for this sort of information to be given to you? Is there a correct age?
I've never thought of this question, but I mean, most of my friends have kids, right? And I mean, I would give them an age of 10 actually, where they're kind of are being able to comprehend a lot of issues. At the same time, you've raised a very valid point that are they actually able to, because I feel younger generations today and their emotional quotient towards actually understanding problems, they have a lot of information. They have very little knowledge, even less wisdom, and very little emotional quotient.
Hey. But I see your point. I see your point.
See, that emotional quotient is largely, is minuscule, right? Also, by virtue of the fact that they're so protected. My friends' kids maybe they have privilege on their side, right? But by and large, that privilege is much more than what we had. And I have only that example to relate to. Plus, I also work with some social development organizations that work with women and girls at the grassroots level, right? Even there, this is not just a urban phenomena or a privileged phenomena. Your emotional quotient has reduced over the years, and I don't know whether they can, whether they'll feel traumatized by it, or whether they'll be able to handle what it means. But I do believe that they can have a very well constructed argument, and I see that 10 years onward. I mean, I'm not an expert, so I really don't know, but I see that they can formulate an argument much better than what I could at that age.
But then, I think of political awakening. I call it that. It sounds very grand. It's really not. But basically, my political awakening, I would say, came around the time of, let's say, I was 19 to 20 years of age. When I say awakening, what I mean is I'm actually comprehending what a government does or how it affects my life and how politics in real life, voting, leads to me being affected. And the only reason why I know all of these things is because I started working in Parliament.
Right.
And that is when I sort of, and journalism before that, but like just generally my awakening sort of happened during that time. When would you say that happened for you?
I'm hoping it'll be next month. Really waiting for it.
Yeah. But I would ask the same question to you. Like, do you remember an age where you actually started to relate these concepts?
I think when I was in class 9. And I think primarily because I was living in Kashmir.
Yes.
So, everybody was involved in whatever was happening politically. And I wouldn't say it was a very unbiased point of view because you're obviously affected by what you're seeing around you. But at least an awareness of what politics does or its machinations or where politicians stand. A lot of it, you kind of grew up fast in that sense in terms of understanding politics. And it wasn't just true for me. It was true for most people my generation. Maybe because we grew up in really extraordinary times.
That's true.
Yeah,
I mean, the events of what that were happening around you sort of forced you to think that way. I'm guessing. Yeah.
But having said that, Ram Janmabhoomi or the Babri Masjid demolition happened in 93, right? And I was in class 10, and despite being in Kashmir, I was in 9th or 10th, I'm forgetting the year. We don't remember anybody talking about it.
Interesting. Actually, I don't remember.
And we are a Muslim majority state, right? By and large. But I don't remember anybody talking about it.
I don't remember.
Do you think
either.
you were excluded from these conversations because you were a kid, like at that age?
Not
were
really.
The adults talking in closed rooms?
No, not really. I think, there's a very different, the conversation is very different when you're a minority surrounded by a majority
Correct.
community and when you're a majority.
Correct.
I think you talk about it, you're outraged, but it's not creating a sense of fear.
Yeah.
Because you somehow feel that you're living in an area where you are the majority and you'll be protected, right? And maybe perhaps there were other concerns. And I'm going way off track from where this is, but Kashmir was never very communal.
Right.
I mean, it's a little strange to say that, given that there was an exodus and Pandits were... But the conversations were never about Hindu-Muslim. I've met a lot of my friends who happen to be Muslims from outside Jammu and Kashmir. They have a very different perspective to how they look at these issues than me.
That matters a lot as well. Like, I would say then, like, in 2002, for example, because in 93 I was like 4 years old. You were not born.
I wasn't born.
You wasn't born. I was 4 years old. So I'm guessing even if people spoke about it, I don't remember. But in 2002, then, like I remember, I don't think anybody really spoke about it much. Political events wise, I think there was 9/11. 9/11 is something that everybody was talking about in 2001. I starkly remember that. The TV showing that whole thing happening, etc. With an event like 2002, I don't think anything happened. But with 2008, the attacks in Bombay, I know you have stories about that as well. So that also I remember very starkly. So there are like these events that I remember, which sort of also helped me with that political awakening of sorts, where I'm actually interested in what is happening around the world. Prince falling into a borewell, that was a big event for me as well.
Oh my God, I can't imagine this. Do you know, it was such a big story for us. So I was at Times Now, right?
Yeah.
And the man who should not be named, right?
Yes.
He was trying to make sure that Times Now becomes the #1 channel and so on, and nothing was working, right? So suddenly the story came of this boy and there were quite a lot of such stories that would come pretty much from our stringers, as they are called, right? Journalists who are all over in smaller towns and whatever. And we had never really looked at them. But he said, we have to make this the biggest story that India is going. Yeah, and we were just blasting that news 24/7.
So you guys caused that ripple effect that made it a...
I think kinda.
I would say Z News did though, because I looked it up and Times Now was there for sure.
That's what I'm saying, because we weren't that popular.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you talk about Arvind Kejriwal and his rise, we were a substantial part of that process. But the way we went crazy about it, and suddenly it did become a tamasha, right? With all the TV crews there and the way they carried that news, that I think was a pivotal moment in Indian journalism, if you want to call it that.
I think that is when
Prince changed it all. He has no idea.
2008 was when I think Times Now actually had its moment, where it actually transformed into like a small channel to this channel that everybody seems to be watching. But before we go to that, we'll talk about that later.
I just have a question.
Chapter
related question. It was very interesting what you guys were talking about. What's the right age to assimilate ideas?
Yeah.
So, when you were 10, were there any ideas about women that you had internalized, that like you had taken in from the world around you?
Yes. लड़के रोते नहीं हैं.
हाँ तो सही तो है.
लड़के our toys were different. Like my mom had gotten me, I remember like a mom, mama, all the people had given me a lot of teddy bears. There was a point in my life where all of them disappeared and were replaced with GI Joes. I remember like
without telling you, without just like
that's gone. There is a zoo in Nagpur called Bharas Bagh where I was taken and I was handed over my first GI Joe.
Wow.
And I was given that. I starkly remember this moment because after I went home, the toys were gone and I had this one stupid shit thing to play with. इतनू सा छोटा सा ऐसे I twisted it around and broke it basically immediately. And उसमें एक rubber band था and I was trying to figure out why there is a rubber band inside. So you know that is one thing that for as women, like I grew up with male cousins mostly. So there were many things which I think I was internalizing just because my family was behaving in a certain way, just because my mom was treated in a certain way, my aunts were treated in a certain way in the family. There's this one very interesting article that I read. Someone had written ki you don't realize the importance of garam roti because since childhood, in a male-dominated household, the woman of the house gives you garam roti, and that just becomes like your habit. So when you go and live alone, you don't have that garam roti and you crib about it, but you do realize that is a sign of patriarchy because the women of the house later, they will eat basi roti. They will eat like, "Arey, achar laga ke kha lenge and this is the best thing that I ever eat." They're just telling themselves that. I think things like that, I would say. Would you say that happened for you as well?
So I think much earlier because, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this. Just my personal experience, right? So I was what they would call a tomboy. I would always be in shorts and running around and playing with my cousins and my brothers and all of that.
Right.
And every time I had to go out, my mother would want me to wear a frock and, frilly stuff and all that. And I used to hate it. And I started putting, so I remember this one image is so clear in my head. So I'm standing in front of the mirror and she's made me wear this ugly yellow frock, sleeveless, and I take a bar of Dairy Milk chocolate and I put chocolate all over the dress.
Rebel, amazing.
Right? And she saw me and she said, "What are you doing?" I was like, I don't want to wear this. So then she obviously couldn't do much and she had to allow me to wear shorts. So I knew that I was different, like in the way I was dressed or whatever, but I don't think there was a big deal made by, apart from this going out or whatever, she was fine with me playing with the boys and all of that, right? So maybe that was a realization in terms of different roles, and I also think because my sister was very girly in that sense, right? Always playing with her dolls and quiet and whatever. I think that made the difference even more stark,
right?
Yeah.
Because I was like this gunda running around and
that Cadbury Dairy, I just had an image in my head, and also it proves one of my theories that all kids are psychopaths because it's like, who would do that? Okay, don't like who would? It's like, no.
And it looked so deliberate. I don't know what I was thinking.
Did you meet your parents' eyes and get like
no, not really.
Wow.
Let's read the chapter.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the previous chapter, we saw how women's work in the home was not recognized as work. So in the previous chapter, this is what happened.
Wow. Well done.
Well done. If you want to watch it, that was the previous chapter. We also read how doing household work and taking care of the family members is a full-time job, and there are no specific hours at which it begins or ends. In this chapter, we will look at work outside the home and understand how some occupations are seen to be more suitable for men than women. We will also learn about how women struggle for equality. Getting an education was and still is one way in which new opportunities were created for women. This chapter will also briefly trace the different types of efforts made by women's movements to challenge discrimination in more recent years.
Which actually started with when you read the Cadbury thing.
Yeah.
So props to you for that.
Yeah, you
No,
were
actually,
the person.
The intro is quite good, huh?
Yeah.
For a 7th class civics book, I think the intro is good. It's just that the pages thereof are not very, don't live up to her. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about unpaid labor though. Like this whole roti business and all these things are this is unpaid labor, right? I mean, of course, this chapter deals with like actual labor, wages, jobs. In and around us, do you see a change where unpaid labor is now more valued for especially the emotional labor that women do, and also the unpaid labor that women do, which is a lot? Do you think that's getting more value in the
for
current
a certain
times?
generation, yes. I don't think it's uniform across. It's not uniform across different regions of this country. It's not uniform across different classes. Neither across generations. I see it more in the age group of say about 18 to 30. That's the age group where, or maybe even if I had to stretch it to say about 40.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm 45, and I in my contemporaries, I don't see. I mean, everybody talks about it, and it's like the cool thing to say.
Yes.
And you'll in a party perhaps say that, but at the end of the day, if you are the working person, whether you're the spouse or usually the husband, then if there's a party at home, you're the first one to sleep, and the wife will be cleaning up. I've seen that, right?
Yeah.
And there's some who are exceptions to the rule, but I don't think it's. I don't think it's as people speak about it a lot more, which I think is the positive part. But I don't think it's been accepted and suddenly valued. I don't think so. At least not in all generations. No.
Interesting, because I think around me, at least in my generation of people, I think there is more awareness, and I think in your side of things also there is way more
For sure.
happening.
For sure, yeah.
There is awareness and there is valuing, but the thing is that expectation insidiously is still there of the genders doing their roles, even if it's even more put on the pedestal. Like if a woman cooks my age, I'll be like, wow, this is amazing, I'll say that. But it didn't start with me cooking. So that is still there.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost like the forms of sexism are getting smarter and smarter. Like they are evolving and catching up with the times. Like woke sexism is a thing, I think. Like there is a way to be sexist without saying the things that are bad, while saying the right things, while still doing the things that are sexist. So my generation, unfortunately, is getting very good at it.
Oh shit, really? Oh, that's interesting.
That's not good. Yeah. I don't mean it as like, just don't get me wrong. I mean it as a bad
Now
thing.
they've become smarter about it, right?
Yeah.
Earlier, my father would have been very like clear about who he was.
Exactly.
मुझे अपनी माँ का खाना याद आता है क्या तुम्हारी माँ बनाती है, right?
Yeah.
So now I think the younger generation might not say it like as blatantly as that.
Like I've seen it in my cousin and her husband. It's a little passive aggressive where my sister is like, I love cooking food, and he's like, I prefer eating out. So it's still there. It's still there. It's in like a different way, but we gotta get smarter and defeat this smart sexism.
I feel very guilty. Millennials is this breakaway beach में घुसाया हुआ generation, which is my generation, which is between you, where your dad is like मैं मर दूँ, and between these guys who are like ultra woke, like ये कैसे बोल दिया, ये कैसे बोल दिया types. So we like are this weird transition generation who are made to feel guilty either way. It's like
oh no.
Like for example, this whole thing about he said that I like to cook food and now in my house, so both of us like to cook, but she's better at it. It's not a form of sexism.
You see how smart it is?
I know.
She's the better chef.
I get your point.
And then when I think about this, I feel guilty because I know I can't cook as well as her. I can't make as much variety as her. I can't make Chinese worth shit. My noodles turn out to be blobs, but I still want to do it because I feel guilty.
You should go for a cooking course and become better than her.
I mean, I watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I make great fried chicken. That is my specialty.
But your wife hates that.
No, it's fine. And please.
Okay.
I do that.
Okay.
In your notes, is there anything that we have missed out yet? Or it starts with the images exercise?
It starts with the images exercise.
Just a small note, if we were in an exam, you seem like a topper. I would love to sit behind you because the clarity in those notes.
I could read it. Yeah. Look at my shitty handwriting. It's just like you can't read shit.
It's almost like even I have notes now because of that.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Mahrukh, you want to start with the...
So my problem with this exercise, right? I love the exercise actually. So let me first start with saying that it's actually the kind of exercise we spoke about right in the beginning.
Let's describe it to the audience also.
Yeah. So there's this page and it says who does what work, right?
Yeah.
And there are about 6 boxes, and it says a farmer, a factory worker, a nurse, a scientist, a pilot, and a teacher. And what it says below that is see what images your class drew by filling in the table below. Add up the number of male and female images. So the exercise is for the child to actually make an image of who he thinks of as a farmer, or what image comes to his or her mind, right?
Did you draw?
I didn't draw. I mean, I did a mental drawing.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
So okay, let's do that exercise actually. So when you think of a farmer, man or woman?
Man.
Now I drew a man with a hull. Okay. Yeah.
What's the gender of the hull?
It's a hull. I was drawing a communist symbol earlier, but I was like, thoda extreme ho jayega.
Right.
So, yeah.
Looks like Omar Abdullah. His party symbol is the hull, no?
It's like progressive, but not on gender terms in all the other ways.
Okay, factory worker.
Again, male.
Male.
Men and women both.
ये both option नहीं है इसमें.
Then men.
Men.
Okay. Yeah, man with a hard hat is what I drew. Okay. Nurse.
Woman only.
Woman only.
Woman.
Only. Same woman. I drew a woman with a cross on her heart. Why though? I don't know. Anyway, we'll psychoanalyze it later. Scientist.
Woman.
How come?
I think Vidya Balan has a lot to do with this.
Really?
No, but I actually thought of a woman. Instinctively, I don't know why.
I also thought of a woman. I drew a woman with a curly haired thing because the only scientist I know IRL is a woman. Like, I mean, one of my friends is a scientist,
right.
and she's officially a scientist.
I was gonna say she's officially a woman.
And also a woman. But so I drew a woman with a flask.
Flask? Like a flask.
Oh, as in like
chemistry
flask.
Chemistry flask.
Not like a flask.
So they are not seeing, no? Just tell them which flask.
Chemistry.
Weird stereotype.
Okay, pilot.
Male.
Male. Yeah, I drew a dude with a plane on top. I couldn't draw him inside, unfortunately, but yeah. Okay.
I think we get the idea.
Yeah. Teacher?
Woman.
Woman throwing a duster, because that is my image. English teacher throwing a duster at my face. But I think all of it matches, like for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Now, I did the same exercise in the office, and I did a survey of how everybody thinks. Yeah, so
good student. Wow.
Yeah. So teacher. So I asked 7 people. Okay. For teacher, 1 said male, 6 said female.
Okay.
Farmer, 1 said female, and 6 said male. Factory worker, interestingly enough, 4 said female, and 3 said male. Nurse, all 7 said female. Scientist, 4 said female, and 3 said male. Pilot, 2 said male, and 5 said female.
Are they pretending to be like very...
I asked them, like, are you like overthinking this, right? I was like, no, instinctively batao. As much as I could, I did that with 7 people, right? I think like they were being genuine. I mean, a lot of them were being genuine. Some of them were being like, oh, both. But I was like, please, no. Like, batao ek koi. So then they also thought about it and went the other way. Of course, there was one Nivedita who was like, no, now I will, what? All these things women can do. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, of course, there will be that one child who will do that. But I was actually, do you think these results match, or are you surprised?
I'm surprised by the farmer bit. You said that the 6 said women, right?
No. Farmers they said 6 said male, 1 said
6 said
female.
male. I thought
Factory
it was the other
worker,
Factory worker, I'm surprised.
Yeah, 4 female and 3 male.
Factory worker and scientist, even though my answers are for the scientist, I thought of a woman, are quite surprising.
Interesting. One interesting thing was when I say professor, who do you think of?
A male.
Yes. Yes.
Woman.
So, I mean, teacher, when you say it's female.
Yeah.
Professor, when you say it's female.
Nurse, female, doctor, male.
Yeah.
And
there's the story, right, where the scientist word actually came up because only men used to do science. So there was a man of science.
Oh.
Yeah. And then when the first woman who came in and was it started to do science, I think she was a physics scientist in physics. That is when the word was invented for women. And now it is being applied everywhere.
Wait, which?
The word scientist.
The word scientist.
So earlier for men, they were using man of science.
Man
So there
of
was only
science.
one word, one term, which was man of science.
Oh, that.
And then when the first woman came, they were like, "अरे ये क्या हो गया? इसको कुछ और बोलना पड़ेगा." They can't call her man of science because she's not a man.
Yeah.
And
Also,
now-
objectively, a better name.
Yeah.
Scientist is better
Yeah.
than man of
Yeah.
science.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised that this is happening. Right? Yeah.
But just to give you an idea about how far off all of us are, farmers, you said 1 female, 6 male. All of us also got it wrong. On the next page, we have this fact which says that 83.6% of working women in India are engaged in agricultural
Agriculture,
work.
yes.
What world is it in our minds, and what is the world we actually live in? How much difference there is? in
You
what
know,
you think?
this is interesting, Mahrukh, because I mean, everywhere I went, even to cover elections, and you must have also seen this, you see mostly women working on the farms.
Yes.
Why is that so?
I think a woman in a village is the most hardworking person in a household also. She's not just doing all the housework. She's actually on the field the whole day, working in the farm. Because I think primarily because the man feels that he has to do bulk of getting the produce, harvesting it, all of that. And women are, I personally think, are extremely hardworking and focused in that sense, and they're also cheap labor, free labor.
Right.
Rather than getting more men who might do the job faster, you get all the women of the house. They'll work and you don't have to pay them. So you get your cousins, wives, everybody out, and they're not just doing this. They'll go home and actually make khana also for everybody. Then they'll clean the house also.
Yeah.
Then they'll make sure everybody sleeps. उनके beds वगैरह सब वो सारा कुछ औरत करती है. And this happens across the board, not just across all villages in that sense. I was thinking that this word kisan, right? Kisan is like male, right? Is there a female word for it?
Kisan. Oh. No, actually, now that I think of it, I can't think of one. Can you think of one?
Clearly, we can't. 1 to 5. Of course, we can't.
Yeah.
And my other thing, while I really like this exercise because it's made all of us think we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
I'm also thinking that where are some contemporary job profiles in this exercise?
Like
right?
which ones would you like to see?
Like I'm saying, like for a large number of new like jobs that have kind of come into
Like
prominence,
a programmer.
like IT jobs.
Yeah,
Okay, like a coder.
Programmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about a journalist?
Yeah. Or a consultant.
Or a consultant, or a social media influencer.
Yeah.
I want to know what kind of imagery do students have?
Can we do this exercise with these also?
Yeah.
Please, let's start. Okay.
Okay.
So you give these. Okay. So first you said
Coder.
Man.
Man.
Sakshi. Female. Male. 3-1. Okay. What do you think?
Journalist.
But you?
Man.
Man. Okay. Journalist. Female.
Female.
Woman.
Woman.
Female. Yeah.
Female. Oh, 5 for female.
Right.
Cool.
Social media influencer.
Male.
Preferably none. No, a female. Female.
Male. There
Male.
you go. Female.
Oh. Female. Oh, 3-2. 3 for female and 2 for male. Okay.
Then consultant, which is like
Consultant. Male.
Female.
Male. Oh, 4-1. 1 female.
Yeah.
Okay, politician.
Male. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah. That was instant. Yeah.
No wonder we have no women in
the
parliament.
representation itna ghatiya hai. But
You
yeah.
can't even comprehend. Male.
Male.
Oh, 5 male.
Yeah. Because I think women, they need to be more women, and right now the image of a politician is this dirty scumbag who's a man.
Yeah. No, but my most favorite politicians, even currently, are all women. Like people I admire, like let's say Supriya Sule. Really admire her, female. Then Sushma Swaraj, who I used to admire, again female. It's very interesting, even though I think of like the most admired politicians are female.
And the fact that our president is a woman.
Yeah, president is a woman. But still, when you said politician, I think of a man. Shit. Problem है कुछ तो.
It is a big problem.
It's a big problem.
Women change the world.
Title drop, एकदम sudden title drop.
I know.
And I love that you read the title just to get it right. You're like, okay.
It's not even like women can change the world. Women change the world.
Change the
I like the
world,
confidence of it.
Yeah.
For the audience who were wondering who we were pointing to on that side, that's Sakshi sitting there, who is our producer, and that Shubhankar, who is our audio engineer. They were a part of this wonderful survey as well.
Yes, and listening very intently
Yes.
also.
Yeah, and they're both sexist.
She's outraged. So Rosie ma'am ka exercise though is very different from ours.
Yes.
I must say. I don't know. Rosie ma'am ka exercise. So Rosie ma'am ke exercise mein there are 30 children who did the same exercise, and here the male. So teacher 5 male, 25 female. Farmer 30 male, 0 female. Factory worker 25 male, 5 female. This was different from my survey. I think more female and
Yeah.
nurse 0 male, 30 female. Understood. Scientist 25 male, 5 female. Again different from our survey.
Yes.
Pilot 27 male and 3 female.
Female.
Yeah. So this is, I think, more stereotypical. Like which you assume would be the answers.
Yeah. And also because, I mean, look at pilots. How many women pilots do people actually see in the media or people talking about it? Or why doesn't this chapter actually talk about a female pilot? Why are we talking about somebody who's lived 200 years ago?
Yes. We
Right,
will
come
talk
to
about
that,
that. Yes,
right?
we will.
So I'm saying, where is the imagery for these young students to actually think of that?
Absolutely.
That imagery just doesn't exist.
Absolutely. And here also, like, the image that they have here are women working on farms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the image here. So I was looking at the
And I also want to know, what would be the so this is a 7th class civics book, right?
Yeah.
Is this meant only for like cosmopolitan or metro cities, or is this going down to schools in rural areas also? Is it the same?
CBSE.
I think CBSE is all
CBSE.
around enough
Yeah.
to have a big enough
Yeah.
sample size.
Yeah. So, is it that a certain class of children who come from a certain background just don't see as much of this, so they presume that farmers are male? Is there a class perspective to
I
this?
think that is true, because even you were CBSE.
I was CBSE.
I was CBSE.
I wasn't.
But I mean, of course, we have that privilege, and we came from like a little elite backgrounds also. In our school, I would say this seems like the answer that would give.
Yeah.
And this is not an image that we would see every other day.
Yeah.
Even though Nagpur is surrounded by farms and has like a lot of agriculture happening in general, but this is not a common image that you would see on a regular basis. I was looking up this. So they have said 83.6% of the working women in India are engaged in agriculture work. This is from 2004 and 5. This is my perpetual complaint that the data is extremely outdated. So I wanted to see if it has changed. Right now, the data is 75% women in the so it has obviously, like, the balance has gone a little different.
Is it because women are finding better jobs? Hopefully.
But I think even agriculture in general is on a
decline.
no?
Yeah,
Like
could be because of that.
Yeah, occupation is as an occupation it is on a decline.
Right.
So therefore, okay, I have one more exercise for you.
Yes.
Now this is something that I did in the office also. Let's look at average wages. Daily wages, agriculture, non-agriculture. Okay, so agriculture. How much do you think it is for men?
Agriculture wages. Daily wages. $1,000.
Shreyas?
400.
400. Sakshi? 500. 1.5k. Answer is 264 rupees. Right? For women.
If it's 264 for men, I would say like half or 1/3 of it.
Okay, so you would say then around 180.
150.
150. Okay.
65.
65. Okay. 100. Answer is 205. So I mean, it's 22% less. It's still less, but I think we went a little extreme.
We're like, women are really being discriminated.
It's like, this is bad. Women
Let's
change
just
the
give
world.
a hard-hitting answer. 65. Shreyas?
65.
I just didn't want to seem disconnected from reality, but
We are
clearly.
a 5 trillion economy.
Shubhankar said 1.5k, okay? Very disconnected, Shubhankar. For non-agriculture, for man, it's 271, and for women, it's 205. So for non-agriculture and agriculture for women, it's
Remains the same.
Remains the same,
Interesting.
205. So that comes to around
This is like a mean average across the country.
Yeah, mean average. This is from the NSSO survey of 2017.
17, okay.
Lok Sabha answers. So that just giving you the source. But yeah, so now let's get to the part about which is the fewer opportunities and rigid expectations. The point that this chapter is also trying to make, which we did this whole exercise about, is that women are good only for certain jobs. And we assume that women are only good for certain jobs. And there's this line, for example, many people believe that women make better nurses because they are more patient and gentle. I would actually agree with that. Is that too wrong to say?
No, it's not.
Right?
No, it's not. And somewhere I feel that in our bid to question stereotypes are also, some of them at least, are also based on certain factual information, right? Women are more patient, they are more gentle.
Yes.
And if that role perhaps demands those attributes, then what is the harm?
Yeah.
Right? The problem arises when you say you can only do this and you can't do those 20 other things.
Right.
That's the problematic part.
Right.
But if you feel that say for instance, if you're in a rugby team, you need a certain physique to be in it, right? So if a person does not have that kind of physique, then you can't be a rugby player. Now, is that discrimination? No, there are certain attributes that are required for you to be that.
Yeah.
So I think a very clear a clear line needs to be drawn that yes, there are certain attributes that will make you do this job better. Now, you don't want somebody who has a fiery temper to become a nurse and kind of inject God knows what into the patient.
Yeah.
But I think the problem arises when you say कि तुम तो कुछ और नहीं कर सकते. This is the only thing you can do.
You can't become a doctor, you become a nurse.
You
That's
become a
when it's
nurse
problem.
only, right? Or where are you thinking of becoming a scientist or a coder? Please, those aren't the things that girls do.
Yeah.
That's the problem area.
Right.
So I think that make better nurses. I think there's nothing wrong with the sentence.
Yeah.
The thought can kind of be extended to say that it's limiting, that this is the limit within which you can do stuff.
Yeah, like just because you're patient and gentle, then you're meant to do this. You're not meant to do something else. Which is what the other line says. It is believed that science requires a technical mind, and girls and women are not capable of doing it. This is the stereotype that.
This is the opposite, right? This is like the underside of this, right? That if you believe this, you also believe that.
But do you think when we did that whole exercise, we were actually doing this unconsciously, like stereotyping?
Of course. Like the first image that was coming to our mind.
Like the scientist thing, for example. Like we all said female.
Yeah.
I don't think I was stereotyping. It was the first image that came to me. It is not necessarily that I believe that image to be true.
Right.
As in, because I think of a pilot, only men can be pilots.
Right.
I don't think that is the case.
Yeah.
It's just that is what I'm used to seeing. But would I want to question it? Yes. But the exercise was, what is the first image that comes to your mind?
Right.
And that's the first image that comes to my mind, right?
But that's what, like the inference now, which immediately in the chapter, they start talking about stereotypes. So the exercise, basically what they're saying, this exercise that you did, you had this one image in your mind because you now think that women are good at certain things and men are not.
I get your connection, yeah.
Which is not true. I agree with you, actually.
Yeah.
I want to ask about journalists. Do you think there is if you had to choose a better gender to do it, is there, like, why did we all think of women? Do you think women make better journalists than men from anecdotal experience only?
I would say empathy is a very important factor. What would you say?
I absolutely think so. And I mean, women are far more detailed. They have more empathy. And I've seen this at work, right? They will invariably make that extra effort to find out more. This is just my experience. I could be absolutely wrong.
Of course.
And I have been in newsrooms where 65 to 70% of the individuals working are women.
Right.
So there are certain beats that you see male journalists doing. That has also business, for instance, one, even politics to a certain extent.
Yeah. Right.
And that's because of the nature of how that reporting works, right?
The aggression and
not just
fighting.
the aggression. You have to sit with politicians. Then some of them also want you to drink with them.
Environment,
right.
And crime as well, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of police officers, if you want to get the story or the khabar out, or you always have to sit and kind of, have a couple of drinks. And a lot of women find that difficult to do because it invariably
threatens their safety.
Can threaten their safety, or they might be approached or somebody makes a pass at them. So just to avoid that, I think that's where women can't. But other than that, I feel so reporting, I've felt that it's always like it's skewed towards male more, primarily because of this.
Interestingly enough,
but journalists, you think, are
I think journalists, women are a better gender to do journalism.
Right.
Yeah, as controversial as that might sound, but yes,
it's true.
Interestingly enough, you mention political reporting and how men are doing it. War reporting, though, I have seen so many women doing such a great job. Like Barkha is one, but like even now with like the Taliban situation, so many women doing those jobs and very effectively. War reporting, conflict reporting.
Yeah, even Barkha's mom was a great war reporter.
Yeah. Even the Bengal violence. So Monidipa from NDTV, she was there. Again, such a sweet old lady who is just there. The entire village is burning behind her and she's calmly reporting. And she did that for years. Okay, every election in West Bengal, she was on the ground.
Wow. Yeah.
She was like, ye piche chal raha hai, main report kar rahi hu. And she's so calm and she's so great at it, right? So she's retired, unfortunately, now. But I specifically think of her when I'm thinking of like even conflict zone reporting. I would say this is also conflict zone.
And even disaster reporting. Again, that level of empathy to actually know how to tell that story, I feel comes much more naturally to women.
Right.
I must mention some of my ex-colleagues here. So Nidhi did this. Nidhi broke the story of Hathras. So she was there.
Yes.
And I was actually, that is when I actually realized what you mean, because Akansha, Nidhi, both women who went to cover these stories and they were going through the villages, their eye of looking at the story was like, sure, this event happened. So if I would have gone there, I would be like, acha, ye event hua hai, ye hua hai. I would talk to the victims, I would talk to the family and whatever. They profiled the entire village. And they were like, why did this situation happen? Like, what led to this situation? What are the other women facing there, and can it happen to them as well? Right? And that was, I didn't even think of that angle. And that made me realize why it's so important to have women on the ground reporting on these sort of sensitive stories.
Yes.
Even with farmer protests, I realized this again, like Nidhi, the way Nidhi was reporting versus the way I was reporting was very different.
Interesting.
Yeah, and like I was asking dumb questions to farmers. That was my spiel. I was going there, मुझे agriculture के बारे में घंटा पता है, मैं जाऊंगा और पूछूंगा कि भैया हो क्या रहा है. But Nidhi, when she went, she specifically focused on the women farmers because of the same reason which is given in this chapter. Like most of the women there were like, we are the people who work on the farms, man. These men are going forward and leadership kar rahe hain, but we are the ones who are actually working there. And she saw that. And therefore she was the one who was going around and doing that. So, yeah, I would also agree. Very interesting.
And also one thing which I think a lot of men will not agree with, especially when you're inside a newsroom, right? I've worked in television only, so I can talk about a TV newsroom. It's a very high pressure job, right? Because you're constantly, it's like second by second, right? I've seen women being far more calmer under that kind of pressure, and I've seen a lot of men break.
Okay,
so
interesting.
It's a very interesting thing,
What
and I've
do you
seen it
mean
across
break?
3 newsrooms.
What do you mean break?
So, see what happens, say for instance you're breaking news, right? And you there's something called a telecast or a rundown, and it's all set, say half an hour before you actually, so it's a constant process. One is on air and the next one is getting ready, right? And suddenly news breaks, and that entire rundown is completely junked, right? And you have to just go with the breaking. Now, this is a very fast-paced process. Like within 15 seconds, you have to change everything, right? And it's going live on air, so you can't make any mistakes. By and large, I mean, I have seen women handle that kind of pressure much better. I'm not saying that women don't crack under pressure, no.
Course,
but they do a far better job than men.
Is it because by the virtue of being women, they have always been under pressure from society, so they're just like, whatever, we can handle newsroom pressure, because there's just so much resistance from the world where you are trying to be yourself.
Could be. I haven't psychoanalyzed it, but I think women are much better multitaskers.
Right.
So they can do 2-3 things at the same time. They'll handle this also, they'll do this, they'll giving instructions also.
Right.
And I feel that men by and large can do one task very well at a time.
That's very true.
Don't you agree, Sakshi?
Yes.
She's
Agreed.
thinking of 20 things right now.
Yeah, exactly.
How long will this continue? What am I going to edit?
इसने break क्यों नहीं लिया अभी तक? She was thinking of
I'm
that.
just trying to keep track of this conversation. Men are dumb.
But speaking of that, we have to take a break.
Because for us, the men need a break.
काफी intense हो रहा है. But see you after the break.
Hey everyone, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. Listeners, presenting to you Club Vartalab, the premier tier offering for our podcast. Here you get a number of perks, like access to extra bits and clips from the episodes, completely unfiltered, uncut and raw. The chance of watching or listening to the full episodes 2 days before the official release. An absolutely free of cost entry to the Vartalab Just Us live shows. That's right, stories in person. Occasional live streams of the episode tapings on YouTube, an exclusive members-only Telegram group with Akash and Naveen, and you also get your name on the producer slate at the end credits of the episodes. Whoa, that's a lot. So go on to youtube.com/@Vartalab and click on the join button to become a member now. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Akash and Abbas discuss India's big win at the Oscars and the new move Berlin made of allowing women to swim topless in their country. On the Habit Coach podcast, Ashton doles out tips to overcome inconsistencies while preparing for UPSC exams. And on Storytellers and Story Sellers, Vinny takes us through the films that have made it to the Oscar nominations and shares trivia about them. Once again, do not forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We've got some super cool and exciting stuff over there for you and your loved ones. Follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, then do not forget to spread the word. You know, it really helps us a lot. And of course, don't forget to rate and review our shows on whatever platform you are listening to them. All our video shows are also available on youtube.com/IVM Podcast. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, LIC of India, Yono SBI, Cash Free Payments and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hello and welcome back to Chapter 5 of How to Citizen with Mahrukh Inayet. And so far, I am having so much fun that I forgot that you have to go and we have to take a break and all the things. But we have to talk about this part, which is learning for change. Now, Mahrukh, you had a bunch of notes, but let me just tell people what this whole section is about. Essentially, they are giving examples of women who have changed the world, which is the chapter itself. Now take it away, Mahrukh.
So I mean, it's interesting. I have great respect for all these women, from Ramabai to Ruqayya Sakhawat Hussain and to Rash Sundari Devi. Rash Sundari Devi, for instance, was born in West Bengal in 1800. That's like 223 years ago, right? So I'm wondering, I mean, while these are great examples, but for a contemporary child who's in class 7, I mean, shouldn't there be examples that they kind of relate to or identify with? One is that they need to relate to them, right? So some imagery that they kind of understand or have seen in passing.
Greta Thunberg.
Or can perhaps emulate also, right? Greta is a great example, right? The second thing is...
Who else can you think of, quickly? A woman as an example in contemporary world who would be a good example. I would think of Greta.
Greta is a great example.
I would actually think of Richa as one example.
I would also think of Angela Merkel. I think she's a great example of Achha, you're talking of only Indian examples.
No, anyone who you want.
Greta
is not. What? And Angela Merkel is a great example as well.
I think even Medha Patkar, as controversial as she
Yes.
might be, but
Yes.
at least what she's done,
Yes.
I would also look at even who was that woman, the one who had the Gulabo gang. She's also fighting discrimination at certain level, right? Why
yeah.
are we only restricting it to people who've been educated? Why isn't
Right.
it people who've broken stereotypes?
Right.
So
Fulan Devi?
interesting. I mean, there's violence there, so I
Yeah.
don't know what you're perpetuating in that sense.
Yeah.
Why aren't we
But
talking
she did uplift a bunch of people from her tribe. I mean, through the use of violence. But still, I mean, she was quite of a revolutionary sort of person.
So-
now I think, like in hindsight.
Yeah, I think they're focusing more on women who have been in the education space,
Yes.
whereas I feel that the example should be of women who have just inspired.
Yes.
And who have broken stereotypes, because that's what you're trying to say, right?
Right.
Who've broken the glass ceiling.
Right.
The second thing is, like, while we are talking about Rash Sundari Devi, who did what she did 200 years ago, this still happens in India. And I think that's perhaps what hasn't come across as strongly.
Right.
That this is what happened 223 years ago,
Right.
and there are still parts of the country.
I'll actually give you an example, right? So I was looking up Ramabai. So again, I have not heard of Ramabai.
Yeah, I've not
and,
heard of any of these women.
I mean, Savitribai Phule and people who did similar things I've heard of, but Ramabai I haven't. Now I'll just read out what is written here. Ramabai, who was born in 1858, shown above with her daughter, championed the cause of women's education. She never went to school but learned to read and write from her parents. Right. Now there is a Pandita Ramabai Mukti mission, which still exists. Like, you can look it up. It's there. She started a school called Sharda Sadan, and again in Pune, still exists. But I was looking her up. She's a fascinating lady. Out and out rebel. In 1858, or like that period, when if you think of the time period that this happened, she ran away to England. She tried to do medical school,
Nice.
but she was rejected because she has progressive deafness, right? And then, like, she tried to do something there where she taught some lectures, etc. And she converted to Christianity. You know why? She was opposing Hindu orthodoxy and said that men are setting the rule, high caste men are setting the rule in Hinduism, and I'm absolutely against it. The way they treat women is not right. So I'm converting to Christianity. Now, when she converts to Christianity, and also she goes to America. In America, there is this doctor, I forget the name now, I haven't written it down. The first Indian female doctor, she was there. So she was working under her because she couldn't go to medical school. Again, she was helping her do notes and lectures. She was writing books, all the things. Now there she started opposing Christianity. Because she was like, यहाँ पे तो Christianity unorthodox है, so I'm going to oppose that also. And then she got screwed there also, basically.
I think the chapter should have been just her
About
life
her,
story.
Yeah, exactly. And so she fought like a ton of stereotypes, none of which is mentioned here at all.
And I don't think the HRD ministry knows what all she's done.
and then she comes back to India, right? Comes back to India, does the Sharda Sadan in Pune, right? But people don't like the fact that she's Christian. The Hindu people around that area are like, you can't do this because you're trying to convert people. And she's like, no, I'm fighting with people for Christianity. They're making me write Latin में cross पे Latin में लिखना है, मुझे संस्कृत में लिखना है, Jesus Christ whatever जो भी है, मुझे वो करना है, but वो नहीं करने देते. So then they threw her out. Like, literally she had to move her whole operation to this tiny village 80 miles away, which it is given here, which is Khedgaon. Now Khedgaon is like this thriving NGO by itself because of her, where women are encouraged to study, and they're taught skills, and they're taught like a lot of vocational things, etc. Fascinating woman. Like, I mean, I would say, yeah, exactly.
Did you say she had progressive deafness?
Yeah, she had progressive deafness.
You think that might be the reason that she has done everything, because like everything that the men were saying could never enter her head because she's never heard it.
She's not listening. She's like,
Not
what are you
fucking
talking
listening.
about?
You listen to me.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, like, again, if you have to mention her, mention these things also.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was like,
I'm just saying, women change the world. She should be the...
She did. She went to
one
England.
chapter from her autobiography. Enough.
I'm saying put her on the 2,000 rupee note. Let's do it. Let's start a campaign.
So this other lady, which is Rashsundari Devi, 1800.
Yeah.
Again, her story is also, I think, I really like it. So she wrote the first known autobiography written by an Indian woman. What I really like about her story is this part. Where so I'll just read this out. Later in the day, as I sat cooking in the kitchen, I heard my husband say to my eldest son, this is what she's writing, Bipin, I have left my Chaitanya Bhagavad here. When I ask for it, bring it in. This is what the husband said. So he left the book there and went away. When the book had been taken inside, I secretly took out a page and hid it carefully. It was a job hiding it, for nobody must find it in my hands. My eldest son was practicing his alphabets at the time. I hid one of them as well. At times I went over that trying to match letters from the page with the letters that I remembered.
Wow.
I also tried to match the words with those that I would hear in the course of my days with tremendous care and effort, and over a long period of time I learned how to read.
My God, can you imagine that?
God, that's crazy.
Insane.
Again, what?
Insane.
Yeah. Like, so she stole a page from one book, then she took alphabet book, and then she's like, okay, let's match and see what happens. What?
How do you even do that? That's
And then she wrote a book.
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah. You want to tell people about this one though, the Rokeya Shekhawat, which you really liked?
So Rokeya Shekhawat Hussain, I found her fascinating because of she wrote a remarkable story titled Sultana's Dream in 1905 to practice her English skills when she was 25 years old, right? Now this is what I like. This story imagined a woman called Sultana who reaches a place called Ladyland. Now I want to be in Ladyland, right? Yeah. Ladyland is a place where women have the freedom to study, work and create inventions like controlling rain from the clouds. And flying air cars. Yeah. Right? In this Ladyland, the men had been sent into seclusion, their aggressive guns and other weapons of war defeated by the brain power of women. I mean, I loved it. And I love this concept of Ladyland, right?
Yeah.
What a wonderful, like, supplementary book for kids to read, right? So, I believe there is a school in Kolkata.
Yeah. But read the last line, also important.
As Sultana travels to Ladyland with sister Sara, she awakes to realize that she was only dreaming.
No.
She had to make sure the book sells, no? So
No, but I was thinking, she was a science fiction writer.
Yeah.
A 25-year-old science fiction writer in 1905.
Isn't that insane that science fiction counted as equality for women? They were like, this is too sci-fi. This is too unreal.
Oh, Jesus.
Air car and all the things. But I really like this line. The aggressive guns and other weapons of war defeated by the brain power of women.
Yeah. But all three women, right? Whether it is Rashsundari Devi, Rokeya Hussain and Ramabai. All three came from privilege.
Yes.
Right?
That's true.
And for them to break the shackles, yes, must have been tough, but imagine the struggle for somebody who doesn't come from privilege, right? Yes. So maybe a couple of inspiring stories from that could also be part
Mayawati.
of.
Big example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are multitude of cases of corruption and all of that, but her rise in politics is just purely phenomenal.
It's quite phenomenal. I would say to a certain extent, Jayalalitha also was quite a figure who I think should be admired. Sushma Swaraj, again, another big figure which can be an example. Not relative privilege, I would say, but any other examples that you can think of? Mamata Banerjee, I was just about to say, Mamata Banerjee is perhaps the best example. Right. Mayawati and Mamata Banerjee both. Right. In fact, I feel most women in politics today in India are shining examples. Yeah. Yes, some might come from maybe not having worked at the grassroots level, but just by virtue of representing a different voice, I think are remarkable across the board. Yeah. You know, it's very interesting. Priyanka Chaturvedi was in chapter 3. She did with us role of state government, right? And we had this thing where she spoke about, like in the end, she was like, you didn't ask about my controversy? I was like, what controversy? It's like, oh, मेरी Louis Vuitton bag पे फिर से outrage हो गया. What is this? Whatever. And this was before the Khadge scarf incident happened, right? Where she was like, me being a woman, carrying a LV bag, people will notice that, and therefore, this whole outrage and ye will be created, and ye basically whole thing will happen. So when you say that, sure, she comes from privilege as well. So she was not exactly a grassroots worker, but now when she's in politics, the kind of problems she's facing are so different.
So different.
And it's actually very fascinating to hear from women in politics about their experiences, because again, worked with a lot of politician men who basically rose to power, old people, young people, whatever. It's like they're always conspiring. How to get more power?
Yeah.
How to get more? Yeah. Women, though, who I have encountered in politics or whatever, are thinking of 20 different things at the same time. Sure, one of them is acquiring more power, but at the same time, they are also looking at so many other things and so many other aspects of their, their job, essentially, right?
I mean, you talk of Priyanka Chaturvedi, look at what she has done to the image of the Shiv Sena.
Yes.
Right? By just bringing in a different voice, not in the way she sounds, but also how she puts her arguments across. Maybe it was part of a concerted strategy by the party, right? I mean, I'm not discounting that, but it worked.
Very smart strategy,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, suddenly a very cosmopolitan, balanced voice to a party that was largely seen as, a very aggressive gunda party, in that sense, right?
Yeah.
So it does make a huge difference. Now, am I stereotyping her because she's a woman and hence
Priyanka Chaturvedi can't be a gunda? Because I disagree.
You're a gundi.
Gundi.
Priyanka, if you're hearing this, please consider this as your next.
And also maybe perhaps one of the women who can be showcased in this chapter. See, what happens is in politics, why don't we have women? Part of the reason why we don't have women is we don't see enough of them. Apart from this whole thing of politics being like a dirty profession and every politician is corrupt or whatever, they work damn hard to do, even if it is to get votes. At the end of the day, the kind of human engagement that a committed politician has is immense. You would have seen that, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we have a woman politician in this? Now, I know that will change with each government that comes and the syllabus will have to change and go through.
अरे but ये लोग डेटा भी तो 2000 का यूज कर रहे हैं, तो फिर तो उस टाइम का कोई डाल दो, फिर it's fine. मायावती still can be there.
Yeah, but as long as so the more you see it, I feel that's where you start thinking and imagining them like that.
I have one last question for you, because this is about women change the world, and I think it's a very important question to ask. Women reservation, especially in parliament and in assemblies. What are your thoughts on that?
1,000% that women should have reservation in
33%?
parliament. 33% is at least let's reach there. I mean, see, women by and large, you cannot discount them, not anymore. And they, you can't even say that they don't bring an alternative thinking to the process. Right?
They do.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
They represent a certain gender. That's one.
Yeah.
They also bring a certain perspective. And what is it that is actually in politics? This is not like fighting a war that you can say this is artillery and women perhaps might not have the strength or that to combat or
because
whatever.
Because they have brain power.
They have brain power, they have empathy, they have a connect, they can understand a whole host of issues that perhaps men might understand. Let's not talk about men.
Yeah.
What is it that keeps women why are you only giving them 33%? Or if you're reserving 33%, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we are celebrating International Women's Day and all this tokenism happens around it. But until and unless that look at the New Zealand Prime Minister.
Yes.
Right?
Jacinda,
right? What a fabulous example.
What a class act she is.
What
I
a
love
class
her.
act.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a perspective that men perhaps would have never thought that my time is up and I need to go.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I don't think I can do this job that well.
And also, not only did she leave, next day she was in a club partying and going like DJ.
Yeah.
She was a DJ next day. I mean, come on, that's a class move. I love her.
And I think at least it's not about giving them a chance because they have been suppressed for so many years. No, it's not that they deserve a chance. They are damn good at what they're going to do.
Absolutely true.
And if our legislations are going to be for every human being in this country, irrespective of gender choices, then I think women need to have a very strong role in that entire process.
Speaking of tokenism and Women's Day, there was this very interesting incident that happened to me in Parliament. So in Parliament, whenever there is Women's Day and the session is going on, during that time, they did like a special debate. Women's Day special debate where women will speak about women issues. Like women MPs are given chance to speak about women issues.
One day.
Yeah, one day. They'll like a Women's Day. So everybody is like... Now we were thinking like, so me and basically my boss back then, Tathagat, were thinking about this. And like we had a point and we made it to the speaker also, ki why are you making them talk about women issues? Why can't they just do the business, regular business of the house, just that women will speak on it? Like, why not? Like, I mean, like if you have a defense bill or like a defense budget that is being discussed, which is exactly what had happened, they were going to take the defense ministry up. But because Women's Day came in the middle, they stopped it and women issue pe baat karo ek din ke liye. Then next day we'll do defense budget again. Why? Just make women MPs talk about defense budget. Like, what is the problem? Because the perspective that you get will be so different.
Yeah.
And we were very eager to hear that, where we were like, yeah, it might be a great experiment to do, where you reserve a few days of every session for only women to talk about the legislative business. ठीक है, reservation छोड़ दो, मतलब तुमको तो वो तो देना ही नहीं है अभी. लाइक एक गवर्नमेंट आ गई, उसने प्रॉमिस किया था, दूसरी गवर्नमेंट आ गई, उसने प्रॉमिस किया था, किसी ने दिया नहीं. दे डोंट इवन रियलाइज द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ व्हाई दे शुड गिव इट. But at the same time, these are like small things that the speaker can do. And back then we had Sumitra Mahajan, who was a woman, as the speaker. She was like, it's a great idea, but nothing happened. Next year we did it again. Nothing happened. But if someone wants to share this with someone who is in charge and wants to do this, please share.
Wow.
But also,
I think men can also change the world, or what?
Women change the world.
No, but I've always had this debate with my friends, and I actually have not come to a conclusion as to what I think. But there are two thought processes in my head, right? One is, what is this tokenism? Why do we have to celebrate an International Women's Day, right? Why one particular day? Celebrate them every day,
yes,
right? The other thought process is that why not? Because the way the world is, they're not going to celebrate women every day. So if one day they are made to feel special, kaun sa pahad toot?
Yeah,
that's true.
So I'm not really sure which way I kind of
lean towards,
but somewhere people have to make a start, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it is with just as much of tokenism as there is. Maybe if you feel that it's not really doing something, maybe somewhere some woman or some man will be inspired to at least respect the women around him.
Right.
I don't know how it works, right? But yeah.
The thing about like, I'm coming back to the reservation point and then we'll end. The logical defense for reservation, as you correctly put it, is that it will bring a very different perspective to lawmaking and legislation, which we currently don't have. But I'm also trying to understand the resistance to this. Do you have any insight on that? Why is there so much resistance towards having more women in politics?
I think first of all, because this is my understanding, right? Is because the field is so male dominated, right? Secondly, it is because there is a natural fear that if more and more women come into the fray, see, politicians after all are regular human beings, right? The more you allow women to come in, then women bring with them a certain sensibility. Then a lot of politicians in the party have to behave themselves, and that somehow is, I feel, is a deterrent. Thirdly, there aren't enough women candidates around.
Yes.
And they some of them actually face a big problem that who do we get in, and then it's like the wife or the sister or bhabhi or somebody else, right? There aren't enough women in politics.
Right.
So it's not resistance. It's like, ab kahan dhoondenge? How are we going to fill these seats? And then we'll have to get a weak candidate. That candidate might lose because that candidate is not really working on the ground, at the grassroots level. So I think it's partly a certain amount of reticence, and partly because there's a very real problem on the ground.
And this actually applies to the same logic you gave for journalists and why women don't cover politics.
Yeah.
The environment is also not conducive for women to be around and do the
it
work
isn't.
that
And
they are supposed
a lot of that involves, I mean, when you're sitting with your party workers, there's a certain amount of, not camaraderie, but there's a certain, it's like a boys' club. And when a woman comes in, then they have to start behaving themselves.
Yes.
And I know a lot of men who might be hearing this will kill me for saying it. But women, I feel, are far less corruptible than men on a general scale.
Of course.
Right?
Thinking
He's
about
met
it.
a lot of corrupt women.
Thinking about it. I
Or
might
maybe
have
they're
a
not
difference
enough
of opinion.
that they haven't started getting corrupt.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I was coming
They're
to.
too new to the game.
Yeah,
They're
like,
too new
men
to the
have
game.
a lot of experience holding this power and like doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
Once women start getting that power, do you know what Indira Gandhi did? That is one example that comes to mind. But
But I want to see
But
that
she's
in the
one-
chapter also.
Huh?
Yeah.
I want to see this in the chapter also. Corrupt women politicians. It's possible.
Yes,
It's there.
aspire, change the world.
But I think the biggest problem with this whole reservation system is there are not enough candidates out there.
Right,
There are
right.
not enough women to begin with.
Right.
To convince women to get into politics is that much harder.
Right. And that I think is a good message to end this on. Any closing thoughts?
Let's gather all the women who want to be elected and do whatever we can.
Yeah.
And start your own party.
And
Called
start-
Party.
Yeah.
Ladyland.
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 Ladyland. Women's Party of India. Actually, that's an idea that who had suggested this? Prashant Kishore or someone
A
like
guy.
a political strategist? A guy had suggested.
Okay.
It was a guy.
Okay.
That's what I remember. But the interesting thing is, if tomorrow all women decide to essentially form a political party of women only, that's 50% of the population right there. Constituency wise, giant, largest constituency, all the power, you win all the seats, you do all of it, and men can't do shit because men will be fighting about random things on the side anyway. So think about it, women, change the world.
Is Prashant
Ladyland में रहना है कि नहीं रहना है? रहना है ना?
Is Prashant Kishore working on it?
But thank you, Mahrukh. Thank you so much.
you.
for
I had a
that.
you.
great
Thank
time.
you for coming.
Thank you, Shreyas.
Yeah.
Thank you, Meghnad.
And thank you for your extensive notes. If you don't mind,
Yes.
can we take a picture of your notes and
Please
post them
do.
later?
Yeah, but make sure they're like slightly blurred because people will say, what the hell have I done?
Yeah. But yeah, Sakshi will post this picture on social media when this episode goes out, so look out for that. You will find the links to all the references that we have made and the chapter which we are putting on a Google Drive and making it available for you niche. So please do look at that as well, and you can read with us. You can see there are a few things about this chapter that we have skipped because of time and also because we wanted to spend more time with the exercise, etc. So please go through it. That was chapter 5, guys. Next time?
Next time. We'll see you then.
कौन है next time?
Oh, that's what you're asking. Acha,
Shreyas.
I thought you were saying it to the camera. Chapter 6, we have a guest who's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna be very interesting, and well, you have no idea what you are in the store for.
Yeah, but that you will have to wait for also because we are taking a mid-season break here.
Oh.
Shreyas ko pata hi nahi hai, obviously. So we are taking
Oh, no.
a mid-season break here. We will be back with How to Citizen very soon. We have done 5 chapters. There are 4 more to go. Some very interesting guests are coming. To be honest, हम finale के लिए guest लाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं और उसके लिए थोड़ा सा delay करना पड़ रहा है because we want to get a banger of a guest. If you know any guest who is a banger of a guest, please suggest.
We are
Please
in
talk
talks
to
with
them.
Zelensky. If you think there's someone better, please reach out to us. We'll hit you up.
Mahrukh, this has been an absolute pleasure doing this with you.
Likewise, I had a great time.
Yes.
And it made me think.
Yes. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.